Q-Tip is most known for his work with A Tribe Called Quest, and rightly so. What he built alongside Phife Dawg, Jarobi White and Shaheed Muhammed should always be revered. He helped build one of the most successful groups in hip-hop history, who now hold one of the greatest discographies in all of music. From People's Instinctive Travels all the way through to We Got It From Here, Thank You For Your Service, Q-Tip showed off his true talents as both a producer and as a rapper. His innovation that brought us the true fusion of jazz and hip-hop, as well as his philosophical, introspective and sometimes humorous rhymes, have made him one of the most critically acclaimed artists in all of hip-hop. The influence he has had on the culture and music can't be understated. But as I said, Q-Tip is most known for his work with A Tribe Called Quest, which has often left his significant solo work overlooked or overshadowed, which is a huge shame because Tip has delivered some unbelievable, unique and progressive records over the years, records that I feel like the younger generation specifically overlook. After multiple critically acclaimed platinum certified albums, Q-Tip would start producing outside of the group, and in 1994 he would be introduced to a young JD, aka J Dilla, after being handed a Slum Village demo tape at Lollapalooza. Anyway, Q-Tip basically linked Dilla with the Far Side to work on their upcoming sophomore album, Lab Cabin California. Anyway, Tip wanted to work with JD and formed the Umar alongside Shaheed Muhammed. First, they went to work on Tribe's next two albums. Firstly, Beats, Rhymes and Lives, which was heavily criticised at the time for moving away from the group's original sound. But looking back on it, what an amazing album that it doesn't get the credit it deserves. The Umar is very relevant to Q-Tip's upcoming solo work. This is all relevant, just follow me. Then followed The Love Movement, what would be Tribe's last record up until 2016, almost 18 years later. The Love Movement once again received a lukewarm reception, but both these albums and the Umar would set the early foundations for Q-Tip's first solo album, Amplified. See, Tribe would break up in the late 90s and Tip got straight to work on launching his solo career. Tip and the Umar would build on the production found on Tribe's last two releases. Yes, this album is flashier than any Tribe release, and yes, it is more club friendly, but it's a great debut from one of hip hop's most progressive and creative musicians. Dilla, in 2022, is one of the most worshipped musicians in the history of music, but back in the day there was slight backlash over the production JD was introducing to both Tribe and Q-Tip, and this album is a perfect demonstration of Dilla's versatility, as he worked in both commercial friendly beats with soulful head nodders. But as the album was credited under the Umar, we don't really know who perfected each track, but Q-Tip did say this: when we would work together, he would have it like 75% there, and I would add a kick or bass line. And while Q-Tip's lyricism would change from his philosophical lines on his previous work to a more boastful and seductive pen, some tracks remained with his usual abstract writing. It's a perfect blend and was way ahead of its time. The soundscape that JD and Q-Tip built is captivating, smooth and inventive, and part of me understands why fans at the time didn't warm to this project due to it being a departure from the Q-Tip they all loved from Tribe. But looking back almost 25 years later, you can just see how influential and incredible this album is, and actually a lot of critics who hated on it at the time have now given positive reviews. But you know, Pitchfork were quite harsh on this album, actually saying this: gone from the Wax's abstract storyteller and social critic, he's been replaced by a scarcely recognisable sex-obsessed MC. And that is harsh, very harsh. You have amazing tracks like Let's Ride.
Ain't nothing better than to ride out the hood with it. Who looking better and damn you looking good in it.
And Things You Do.
I puff L's with ladies and gentlemen. I break spells with faith in the burst to win.
Which carry the Tribe influence heavily, but build on it. The production is less melodic than Tribe releases, but instead boasts frantic rhythms and instrumentals you can't help but nod your head to. And you know, even the more commercially focused tracks like Breathe and Stop and Vibrant Things are still great. Honestly, the only track here I'm not too fussed about is the collab with Korn, which to this day still kinda makes no sense and sounds, well, yeah. But anyway, Amplify was a great start for Q-Tip's solo career, and the album still sounds fresh to this day. The innovative production from both Tip and Dilla is still a standout, while Q-Tip is still sharp as ever on the mic, finding the pocket on every instrumental that was thrown his way. The album is just full of head nodders from front to back, and it is one of the very best albums of 1999. And it is worth noting that Tip became part of the collective The Soulquarians during this time, and helped release some of the most critically acclaimed albums of the 90s and early 2000s. Anyway, Tip would have a house fire around this time, which in turn left him with no records to sample, which changed his approach to music. He began working with a live band and started taking piano lessons, which he would incorporate into his next release. Or he wouldn't. You see, Tip had label issues around this time, and therefore his meant to be sophomore record, Kamal the Abstract, was shelved up until 2009. He also recorded an album called Open during this time, but once again, due to the whirlwind of label issues he found himself in, this album would never see the light of day. Then, in 2008, we got Tip's critically acclaimed sophomore album, The Renaissance. 9 years after his solo debut, multiple label issues, a bunch of tribe reunion shows, and the death of his close friend J Dilla, we got Tip's second album, and it was well worth the wait. He took elements of the love movement and amplified and incorporated them with a more classic boom bap feel, but he did still experiment throughout the record. He said this about the album: "I wanted a hip-hop sonic feel, something pure to the sound of hip-hop, with real drums, real emotion and people taking solos. In that sense, this record feels like we're moving in a new direction, something hip-hop should do." All the production was handled by Tip himself, apart from Move and Fever, which was handled by the late great J Dilla, and Move is up there with my all-time favourite Dilla beat. And Tip, well, he was dropping gems on the mic as usual. He was enthusiastic and vibrant, and a track like Getting Up shows this.
Sent you a message, sent you an email. Hasty decisions we made still prevail.
See, you have songs like this which is all about love, and then you have tracks like Man Woman Boogie, which explores social issues and conflict. It's a more mellow album than Amplified, filled with soulful grooves and funky guitar riffs, but the songs still have a kick to them, and Tip still shows off his lyrical skills that we all knew he had on the track Dance on Glass.
Who, me, I'm unaffected, the whale, the hammerhead, the magnanimous decision, unanimous, I am fed. What you looking at? Wait, I can help you with that. The formidable, unforgettable, painting abstract.
And the more I think about it, I think this is my favourite album from 2008. It is possibly Q-Tip's best release as a solo artist, and has aged perfectly. It was even nominated for the Best Rap Album at the Grammys. It's an optimistic outlook on America and hip-hop at the time, built on live instrumentation and incorporated samples. Then, after being shelved for 7 years, Kamal the Abstract was finally released.
I mean, damn police, man, can't you leave me alone? I'm a prince, plus important, plus this business I'm on.
And this was obviously recorded in the early 2000s, and it is Q-Tip's most unique release to date. This album contains the roots of hip-hop, pop and some rock music, but is built and explored around Q-Tip's jazz influences. And Tip is no stranger to jazz. Low End Theory is known worldwide for being one of the best fusions of hip-hop and jazz in history, but this is different. It features a minimal amount of rapping, and Q-Tip doing a lot of singing. It's Q-Tip's The Love Below, if that makes sense, and it's severely underrated. The opener, Feeling, is one of the only times where Tip shows off his lyricism.
All of us is concentrating on the things that we see, how much we make, so you see in great.
A lot of critics at the time called it disappointing, but to me, this album is great and shows off his creativity as a musician, with my personal favourite track being the 5-minute epic, Even If It Is So.
In the back room, greasing up, Friday night is heating up, young cats tricking up, dancing so they give it up, the best girl walking earth. And you know for what it's worth, she working towards a better life, regardless if she working nights.
And that's it. Yeah, that's it for official solo albums. I mean, we have 2014's The Abstract Dragon, which is basically a compilation album of Tip and Busta Rhymes. And then we have The Last Zulu, an album that was announced almost a decade ago, but we still have no release date or anything. It seems like it's just going to be one of those highly anticipated albums that just never gets released and becomes a bit of folklore in the hip hop community. And I haven't even touched on his production work or features, which are also incredible. He's one of the most talented musicians I think we've ever seen, and I believe his solo albums deserve more praise. He'll always be known for his work with a Tribe Called Quest, as he should be, but his creative solo albums deserve many more plaudits.